All right, folks, I'm super excited to share today's guest story with you all. Got Matt Snyder, and Matt is in my online program. He's gotten some pretty phenomenal results, and I really just wanted Matt to get on and talk about his experience over the initial 12 weeks in the program because I think it's going to hit home with a lot of the people listening as well. So, Matt, thanks for jumping on, mate. I know it's pretty early where you are, and
Yeah,
why don't we just start with a bit like who are you so people know more about you? Like what do you do day to day, how old you are, where you're based in the world.
yeah, sure thing. So my name is Matt Snyder, and I live just outside of Vancouver, Canada, and I've been here for about 5 years. But I'm originally from the east coast of Canada, Nova Scotia. I live here with my wife and two dogs. And day to day, I am an occupational therapist, and I work in pediatrics, so with kids with autism and ADHD, and then I do some insurance work as well. And then outside of work, you'll see me mountain biking, hiking, being outdoors wherever I can. I like to be in the gym and then, yeah, being as active as I can. Yeah.
Awesome,
So
man.
it's, yeah.
How old are you now, Matt?
And I'm 32. Yeah.
32.
32.
Yeah, great,
Yeah.
mate. So let's kind of start with where you were at before you joined the program. Maybe just paint a picture for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, growing up, um, a lot of the focus, like in my hometown, was small, but all the guys that I played sports with, a lot of my mindset was formed around comparison and getting in the gym to grow the biggest biceps or grow the biggest chest and shoulders. And what that formed for me over a long period of time in my life is just thinking about how to essentially be bigger, faster, and stronger from like a comparison standpoint. And what that led to was like a lot of body image issues that formed early on in kind of my mid-teens and really carried out throughout my the rest of my life until really this past year or so. And I was always active. I always played sports, basketball and soccer. But when it came to working out and when it came to engaging in physical activity, I'm 6'5" and currently around 270, so I have a pretty big frame, and it was always really challenging for me to move my body in space, not so much running, but just like pushing my body against gravity, and it was always pretty discouraging. So in addition to that, like when I after I was done my master's degree, I hit a long period of depression and anxiety, and that had been kind of cyclical throughout my life. But from age 25 to I would say about well, really age 20 to about age 29, um, I was experiencing that on the regular. I was burning out at work. Um, my job was pretty stressful, and I didn't really have the tools in place to be able to cope, and didn't value, I guess, uh, exercise as much of a tool for my mental health. So I was in a pretty rough spot for a really long time, and yeah, so that's kind of like where I was at before everything, and really kind of going through this highs and lows all the time with work, with life, with working out, starting working out, doing great, and then every like 2 weeks stopping for a couple months, and then finding another program and going back into it, stopping for a couple months. And yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man. And like with the highs and lows, like what does that look like? Like what would be you on a in a high basically with your training and nutrition and everything?
I think like what would happen is that I would get really excited and almost in this like heightened state of maybe like unreality, like it wasn't realistic. I would go all or nothing, do all the meal prep, do try and go to the gym. I would work out way too hard and get super sore and try and like ego lift and end up getting injured. And then the habits weren't formed around like eating out all the time and those kind of things. So it was easy to, okay, well, I'll meal prep and I'll eat healthy for 3 days and let's go back to the burgers and fries or the pizza. I'm a pretty big foodie. So that's what it looked like before, was just like I I was never able to buy in for enough time to form the habits around food and around lifestyle and like understand how those actually were contributing to the problems around my mental health. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a big point, man. Like I think a lot of people just don't realize like physical activity and nutrition, how it impacts you psychologically as well.
Yeah.
Um, so we have this kind of long period of time, like, you know, almost close to a decade, where you're kind of all in, all out, up, down, up, down. So coming
Yeah.
into the program, like what were you skeptical about? Because like that's a big kind of history to come in with.
Yeah. I had tried a lot of it's I definitely take accountability for, but and at the same time, I had signed up for programs like this before and contributed quite a bit of money to it and never saw the results. um, never really, yeah, never really saw the results from a mental health standpoint of feeling better. A lot of it was focused only on losing weight, which are, directly correlates to the issues that I've been struggling with all the years. So it didn't necessarily align with what my actual values are versus kind of the values of what I perceived everyone else thought it should be. So I think that's where a big miss was a lot of the time when I signed up for these programs, and then my mental health was not in a good state. Either I had a hard time keeping track of things and really engaging with the online platforms that they were presenting me, and um, yeah, so it was tough because it was a weight loss focus rather than a holistic
Yeah, for sure, man.
view
So
that I needed.
yeah. And then when you join the program, obviously a lot of, you know, reasons to be skeptical. What was the breakthrough when you were like, oh wow, okay, this is actually different. Like I'm feeling very different to previous approaches.
Yeah, I we had had conversations before I signed up, and obviously, meeting with someone who I can trust is and building that kind of rapport is huge for me. So that was already established. But I think as well, I like probably 2 or 3 years ago, I read the book Atomic Habits. And one of the key takeaways, obviously, from that book is around the cumulative effect of habits and starting out small. And I think that's the approach that's very much taken within this program. So, how that clicked for me was just starting out small with some specifics. And I think when I started the program, I started out with focusing on morning and nighttime routine, or just nighttime routine and bedtime routine to, think about how I'm setting up my sleep to start a foundation. So there was that piece, and that's a lot of the work that I do with kids. So I think that's where it clicked for me. Like a lot of the time was just like, okay, I'm teaching all of these things at work around regulation, around health, around balance. And when I look reflectively inside, okay, I'm not always doing that for myself, and I haven't invested myself in many years in the right way. So thinking about this program and then starting to do these coaching calls, I was just like, yeah, this is something that I can do because it's achievable. It's small enough, but I'm going to trust that like I'll see the cumulative effects in 4 weeks and 8 weeks and then just shoot for small targets. So that was kind of the breakthrough for me of those few things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the point about your work because like obviously that's a massive thing like teaching kids how to be able to self-regulate or down-regulate. Because like a lot of people come into the program and they're doing a lot of the stuff, like maybe they're very organized at work, or for you, it's like you're actually implementing these habits with people. But it's a lot of times we just kind of forget about our own path, right? And it's kind of like once
Yeah,
you start doing it, then it's so obvious, but like it just wasn't happening. So like I'm glad that you brought that up because I think a lot of people will resonate with that. And some, a lot of things are dialed in with the work side of things, and then for whatever reason, it just doesn't cross over into their own personal lives.
yeah,
Let's talk about results, mate. So let's talk about some, we're kind of 12 weeks in now. Also, I think it's important to note that like it wasn't all smooth sailing. Like you had a bit of an accident. Do you want to share that
yeah,
before you go into the results? So it wasn't like you just jumped in and everything was easy peasy, right?
yeah. I had to take about a month off of working out. I think it was late June that I did, but we obviously have Whistler Whistler Bike Park here, just outside Vancouver in Canada, and I just got more heavily into mountain biking this year, and I went off a jump funny, and I slammed pretty hard, so my leg was uh, pretty messed up for 4 weeks. So I mean, it was tough. I mean, injuries teach you a lot about the way you kind of want to move your body and how you want to approach things moving forward, especially the older that I've gotten. But yeah, it hasn't been smooth at all, but it's been learning and it's been part of the process and learning how to cope and still manage the other habits around food and sleep and things while you are injured. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about some of the wins, mate. So even though
sure.
that did happen, you still have achieved a huge amount in 12 weeks. So yeah, do you want to share some of those
Yeah,
wins with people?
absolutely. So I think the first like biggest win kind of goes back to moving my body in space. It's always been challenging for me even to do like push-ups or squats or just like foundational movements. And that's been the biggest piece is gradually moving through the mobility exercises and challenging my body in different ways. I've actually been able to do it and I feel super strong. Um, and I haven't really been lifting weights. I've just been using my body weight throughout all of this, all the past 3 months. So it's been huge for me because it's really improved aspects like of my body image and my confidence in being able to move my body wherever I need to, and I can do it. So it's been a big shift there, and it's felt really good. I feel strong and healthy for it's been a long time since I felt that way. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a huge one. Yeah. And then I think the biggest shift that I've had for the last two aspects here around my mental health. Um, and mental health from the standpoint of being able to focus on these small habits and building a routine out of them week to week. Um, I've been mostly consistent with the coaching calls, which have been huge. I've been able to focus on small goals that I've really had challenges with over the past several years of sleep and thinking about different ways to engage in a nighttime routine that's going to be enjoyable for me, but also accomplish me getting to bed earlier. It's also uh, thinking about thinking about routine around meal prep. That's been like one of the biggest ones. Before, meal prep was always like an iffy kind of thing, like if it's going to happen or not. And I've established a really solid routine around Sundays and Wednesdays being my days and stuck consistent with that. And then I think too within that piece around routine is just incorporating physical activity again in a meaningful way and ways that are going to work for my busy schedule. So those are probably the three things with improving my mental health. And then the final thing is around comparison. This has been the biggest mindset shift for me around thinking about what other people are doing. That's what I did for years. I thought about, okay, well, I need to look like that. I need to be like that. And that's completely dropped off the radar for me. I no longer walk into a gym and think that way. I am just going into the gym, doing what I need to focus on me and set goals for me, um, which for years felt like, oh, I'm being selfish and whatnot. But this past year, I've really honed in on focusing on me and investing in myself, and it's been huge. Obviously, from these wins, it's been amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, man, that's just so massive. With regards to like the shifting the comparison, to you were saying like growing up, it was all aesthetic. Same with me. I think it's basically everyone. It's not really, move better so you can do the things you want to do in life is not really something that you hear. It's changing now, but it's still, not very common. We'll say people are just like, just get jacked. Like that's
yeah,
basically it.
yeah, yeah.
So, like, how was there anything that you did or anything that you found helpful to? Because I'm sure were there periods where you were maybe starting to think more about, okay, I'm gonna do what's right for me, but were you ever shifting back to, oh, but maybe I should be still going for the aesthetics, or like, how did you kind of work through that? Be curious if you could unpackage that a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think like when it came to the aesthetic stuff, like and the comparison piece, like I just got so set in a routine of following what my friends were doing or following what Men's Health was doing, the next month and try that program or P90X, which all those workouts are fine if they work for you. But I was just getting stuck in, oh, I need to do this to make my muscle bigger. I need to do this in order to. So that was always heavily ingrained. And it actually became quite boring to go to the gym and not really seeing progress. So there was that piece in the comparison. And how that shifted for me is when I started doing these mobility workouts, I started to notice the not only that my body started to feel better, but also that my joints were moving in the right way. I felt protected. Like I haven't been injured other than, mountain biking crash. I
Yeah.
I haven't been injured and I haven't had low back pain in the past like 3 to 6 months. So by doing all of these like foundational things within the program, I would say that's helped shift my mindset quite a bit because I'm noticing the results on a weekly basis from as far as feeling safe in moving my body. I know that I'm not going to be injured and that I'm actually setting like a huge foundation to move forward with these kind of cumulative steps to build up rather than, just going for the heavy lifts right away and potentially injuring myself. So I would say that's probably what's helped shift the comparison pieces that I can actually build up these gradual goals for myself rather than looking at what I need to be or what I should be or those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point, man. And it's like you're kind of every week the feedback loop, it's positive. Like, oh, I feel great. I feel better. I feel better versus I feel sore and in pain all the time. And I'm not even getting
Yeah.
results. Like it's like a
Yeah.
lose-lose. So yeah, that's a really good point that you made there. Like your workouts should make you feel better. You shouldn't be broken up all the time. Amazing, man. Like I think this is such a important conversation because I think a lot of people are in the position that you were in with regards to, the messaging or in the fitness industry. It's everything should be punishing and it should be, you should be killing yourself. And that's just doesn't work for most people. Um, would love to know like who would you recommend? Who do you think would be a good fit for the program?
Yeah, I think anyone like in my dynamic, maybe getting a bit older, like I'm over 30 and I know I'm not that old, but those who are maybe struggling with their mental health and need some help and some guidance of building strong habits from like a holistic perspective. I would say anyone who wants to maybe try um, a different way of moving your body and building a foundation so that way you can work on goals of doing your first pull up or doing push ups for a certain amount of time or running. Like a lot of this program has set me up so that way I can think about those things. And I think for anyone that wants to, yeah, move their body differently rather than just going to the gym and lifting weights, it would be a good program for. Um, who who I wouldn't recommend it for. I mean, you have to be able to dedicate some time to it and be in a position where you want to commit to investing the time because um it won't happen without you putting in work, but it's also um supportive. You feel part of a community. So you need to have the time to be able to, and it's not a ton of time, but you need to have time to put in the workouts, to show up for the coaching calls when you can and the check-ins. So I would say yeah, that's who I wouldn't recommend it for. If you're, yeah, otherwise go for
Awesome, man. Well, look, I'm
it. Yeah,
just so chuffed, man. Like with your results to date, and like we were just talking before we went live, the next year it's gonna be huge for you, man. So yeah, just really
yeah,
appreciate you sharing as well. You're very vulnerable, but I appreciate you putting that out there because I think it is going to help a lot of people out there listening to the position you were in, because there's going to be a lot of people listening who are in that position right now as well. Okay.
yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. We might do a round two in a few months.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome, mate.